Hey everyone, before we get to the topic of the video, I just wanted to say that I wanted to take the next step into going back into, I guess, a deeper dive into content creation. And that means opening back up my Patreon and really just providing some extra content. My problem is that I don't really know what to provide on my Patreon, as I'm kind of streaming sporadically and I've already provided my my sideboard guides, I should say, to the public. So what are some things that you would like to see on a Patreon? Would you want to do some 1v1 sessions where I maybe help you with the matchup? Maybe some video reviews? You give me one of your videos of a match. You want to know what went wrong and what you could have done better, or like the plays and stuff. Like, what are some things that I can provide value for you as a consumer on a Patreon for a mill deck, really? Let me know in the comment section down below, or just kind of DM me privately. I don't think my Patreon will be up by the time this video goes up. It's really just going to happen slowly and organically. So yeah, thanks everyone for the support, and hope y'all enjoy this video. What is up, everyone? It's your boy Shaf, aka That Mill Guy, coming at you with a video that really only makes sense if you've been catching the pattern of what's been going on stream and throughout the channel. We're talking Esper Mill and why you, as a Dimir modern mill player, really need to consider at least trying the archetype out ASAP. And really, we're just going to be going over what the differences are, what Dimir provides, what Esper provides, and then going through individual card choices into really the one big payoff right now in Modern that you get for playing Esper. And I think it's going to be pretty obvious, especially from the thumbnail of the video, I assume. So it's going to be interesting throughout, but I think you're going to like to hear some of these points. And hopefully some of you already have those flooded strands that you're playing alongside your polluted deltas, so you're not too far off from actually just being able to straight up play this archetype. Some of the cards are relatively cheap. You might need to buy some Shocklands, which that's fair. That is a little bit of a price, but let's get right into it. After this Reddit meme right here, we are talking specifically about Dimir Mill to start off. So first and foremost, what does Dimir Mill provide? What does Modern Mill provide to you? Well, it provides you an alternative win condition and a great mid-range control style strategy. Done. No, the video's not over there. We're talking about what does the deck need to be able to do at a baseline in Modern currently, and then we can extrapolate from that as to what Esper can do better or worse. So first and foremost, the big thing is that the mill package is strong enough. Tasha's Hideous Laughter carries the archetype throughout the majority of its wins. The viability and flexibility of some of its cards, like Fractured Sanity being able to cycle if you're not looking to mill, as well as Drown in the Lock being able to kill and counter, is also powerful. But most importantly right now, thanks to the printing of Dragon's Rage Chandler, Ragavan, and the pushing of aggressive strategies, we need to kill a lot of things like Ornithopters and whatnot. A lot of things need to be killed on turn one, and then if you're on the draw, maybe these 2-drops like Tarmogoyf and Stoneforge Mystic also need to be wiped out. So we need cards like Fatal Push, Drown in the Lock, and heck, even in my Dimir builds right now, if you're looking at my sideboard guide, I'm really pushing playing some type of Doomblade variant. Whatever your spice is, I prefer Doomblade. But right now, I'm really pushing that, because you need to be able to kill not only those turn 1 drops, but also some of the bigger threats like Murktide Regent. Really just that primarily, but you also might be looking at some Reanimator targets and some bigger drops, whatever it is. So you need to have a good removal package that interacts with the board in all ways. There's a lot of different permanent styles in Modern right now. Thankfully, Enchantress has seen a big tick down, so really just going back to dealing with artifacts and creatures, thankfully. So in the sideboard out of this deck, we obviously have stuff like Engineered Explosives and Echoing Truths as forms of catch-alls to be able to deal with kind of incidental pieces of hate. So that's kind of nice there. Where do we take that as an Esper Mill player? What is Esper providing us? So let's shift over here into Esper Mill. So going over it at a baseline, at a glance, we're seeing a lot of cards. We're seeing our removal suite being kind of changed here with Prismatic ending. We see our sideboard pieces becoming different. We're not really seeing a board wipe. Traditionally, we're seeing something like Dam in there. And then we're starting to see stuff like Surgical Extraction in the sideboard and more targeted hate like Path to Exile, and some interesting silver bullet pieces like Blossoming Calm. So a lot that's going on here. So let's go through this individually, and you'll start to see the power of the traditional removal and interaction package that Dimir provides, and the power and the real shutout factor that Esper can, provide to you as a Dimir player to take you to the next level, especially at an LGS meta where you really know what's going on in the field and you want to be able to predict and be ready specifically, whereas this might be a little bit more difficult in an open field. I really think Esper is that LGS breaker. So let's go through it here. First and foremost, Kaya's Guile. Now, Kaya's Guile really does it all in a great sense. I think the big thing that held this card back is being able to interact with enchantments and artifacts. And that's fine. If Kaya's Guile was able to do that, I think it might be an extremely powerful card, although it is a powerful card in its own right. So we have something like each opponent sacrifices a creature. That's great. That's going to be able to deal with a lot of bigger threats and a lot of smaller threats. Hopefully the bigger threats. Exiling graveyards is very relevant when you're thinking of something like Dragon's Rage Channeler or Murktide Regent, getting rid of that. Also at a baseline, if you're seeing game 1 shuffle effects, your local store and your local meta is very ready for you as a mill player. Great inclusion to have in the main board. Creating a 1/1 blocker can be pretty sweet. You can do things like their Dragon's Rage Channeler attacks as a 3/3. You exile their graveyard, create a 1/1, block that out. Now you've shut out the following Murktide Regent, and you've killed the Dragon's Rage Channeler. You've almost kind of 4-for-2'd or whatever the hell you want to think about it. Pretty solid there. And then finally, the gain for life. Great, again, as a main board inclusion because, hell, it's life gain, right? You always are going to run up against some level of aggression. And again, stressing this again, the LGS meta where you will see more burn players. It is paper. People like to stay to their traditional things that they bought and played in Modern for a while. The gain for life is going to be pretty sweet as a way to combo along with making them sacrifice a Goblin Guide, making them sacrifice a Monastery Swift Spear. And heck, if you're at 6 mana, you top deck this, you get all 4, you get a blocker, you get life, and you kill a creature. Not bad for 6 mana at instant speed. That's the key, right? And remembering that both of the pieces on the top end, so the first 2 pieces are saying each opponent. So you're not targeting. So again, if you're running up against, if you do, it's not really a common deck, but if you're running up against Leyline of Sanctity and Bogles, each opponent sacrifices a creature. You got an edict that gets around hexproof. Solid stuff. So, back up. Let's move up. So hide and seek is something I've talked about in the previous video where we talked about cards that mill players aren't playing enough of, and it's pretty sweet just being able to remember that seek gets out that 1-of shuffle effect in the sideboard, especially against something like Velomachus turns. If you're able to get rid of the Emrakul, you can then seek for Velomachus itself so they can't cycle through infinite turn spells or just like unlimited extra turn spells. And remember that seek, one thing that I forgot to mention in my other video that many astute Discord members were able to point out, seek is an instant. And not only is it an instant, that you're able to do it in response, especially, again, I'm going to bring up the Velomachus turns matchup again, the Indomitable Creativity matchup. Let's say they go to Indomitable Creativity, a token. You're able to seek at instant speed. If you take out the Emrakul, you're able to gain life equal to the mana value. Imagine taking out that Emrakul, gaining 15 life. Pretty solid. So, a great way to deal with pieces like this, and really an interesting way to gain life and deal with bigger CMC stuff. So there's a world where you play this, and honestly, it's not okay. So I wouldn't always bring it in against burn, but if you feel like your burn matchup isn't that great or your aggro matchup isn't that great, take out a 3 CMC spell, take out a 4 CMC spell. I don't know why they'd be playing that. Hey, if they're playing Bedlam Revelers, take out the Bedlam Reveler. Getting a pretty good amount of life there. So pretty solid, sneaky card in Seek. Next up, Path to Exile. Not a card that's super favored right now in the meta. Specifically, if you're looking at Dimir specifically, we have stuff like Fatal Push for the lower drops, and you're thinking, okay, I want Path to Exile. I want to be able to hit bigger creatures like Murktide Regent. The problem is that you're giving your opponent a land, right? Ultimately, one of your bigger targets is going to be Ragavan, and Ragavan killing it and then giving your opponent a land is ultimately allowing the Ragavan to really swing at you in a lot of ways. And if you're playing Esper, your mana base is going to be naturally a bit more painful towards you. So it's almost like you're taking the damage as well, giving them the treasure token, but now it's permanent, you're giving them a land. So really the Pact of Exile is an extra piece versus especially Murktide Region. And I mean, obviously if you're desperate, you can hit the Ragavan, but also stuff like Elementals. Heck, if they get off the living end, you can take out some of their bigger end creatures. So Path to Exile is that extra versatile piece that you can never really forget in Modern. It's a very valuable piece of removal, but as you're going to see later in the video, we have better pieces of removal available to us. But I would still play this in the sideboard. I would not mainboard this right now if you were to play Esper. Moving on, another valuable piece that you get over Dimir, which is why I think, this slowly starts to become a better option versus Dimir, is something like Blossoming Calm. Recently coming out of Modern Horizons 2, I think in a lot of ways, like Test of Talents, this has really been slept on for many players. Of course, if you're in the Discord, I know many of you are already aware of a card like this, but it's fine. That's just for members of the Discord. A lot of you watching this video may not know this card. Gaining Hexproof until your next turn. So let's say you cast it on your turn right now, and you phase out, you fizzle out the Lightning Bolt they've cast, or the Lava Spike they've cast, or sorry, well, it would be Lightning Bolt if it's on your turn. You then gain 2 life. Cool. So on their turn, they can't hit you with any burn spells. So until your next turn. Okay, cool. All right, so now you have this again. Guess what? It has Rebound. You cast it again, and now they have to cast their spells at instant speed on your upkeep, which is fine. That's fine. You still gain 2 life from the last time you cast it. You're going to gain 2 life again. So essentially, you've already made up for that 3 damage burn spell. And not only, you are gaining Hexproof. You play multiple copies of this. This is a great way to shut out burn and really just stop those turns, stop those big damage turns that they want against you, right? They're chaining a couple lightning bolts. They're trying to get a Monastery Swift Spear up a little bit higher. Pretty sweet card. And obviously beyond this, we have a lot more powerful life gain spells. The reason, again, I want to bring this up, it is coming out of Modern Horizons 2, giving you Hexproof, being able to cast itself again. It has Rebound, and gaining you 4 life total. Nothing to shell out about, especially when you're considering this in combination with something like Kaya's Guile, where you are gaining 4 life off of that as well. Sometimes all you need is about, I would say, 8 to 12 life in terms of a swing, and then you're able to push yourself forward. Remember that burn is really a turn 4 deck. It's, kind of wants to get you to 21 damage really quickly. Well, if you put your life total at something like 30, 32, 35, whatever it is, that's going to get a little bit difficult for them. At that point, they've exhausted all their resources, you've killed their creatures, and then they're just top decking. Guess what? If they're top decking, at that point, with 10 life, you top deck much better than them, right? And then you're able to deploy some of your other more powerful life gain spells. Maybe you are still playing a Crypt Incursion, whatever it is. Fortunately, against Dimir, they don't really have an option like this. It's literally Crypt Incursion or nothing. But what happens if you draw a interaction heavy hand and your opponent draws a spell heavy play as a burn player? You can't Crypt Incursion Lightning Bolts. Not really going to gain you any life there. So a great alternative option, one of many that Esper has in terms of the aggressive matchups. And again, not so relevant in the competitive wide open aspect, but again, at an LGS level, trying to get you paper players into this, you definitely will see those burn players, those mono red players. This is a great way to stop them. Next up, we have Dam, and I think this is a great way to see what the alternatives exist for something like Damnation or Wrath of God. Traditionally, you play something like Wrath of God. And the reason I like this is that a lot of people will tell me, well, Shaf, this is very hard to cast. It's destroy target creature and it's black. Esper and Mill in general is very blue heavy. And if you're playing Esper, you do want to make sure you have white sources as well. You don't really want spells that cost black. Well, this is how you want to think about this card. Imagine if you just played Damnation. If you played Damnation in that slot, you're not looking to cast Damnation on 2. If you played Wrath of God in this slot, you're not looking to play Wrath of God on 2. So, Dam is essentially just Damnation or Wrath of God with upside. So you play it in specific matchups where you want a board wipe. Specifically against something like Murktide Region, against Izzet Tempo, I would not bring in Damnation or Wrath of God. That is just a recipe for disaster because that's a 4-mana spell that gets countered by a 1-mana counterspell. You're going to get tempoed out. But I will bring this in against something like Humans and Eldrazi Tron, where if I don't want to board wipe them, if I'm even or I'm ahead, then hell, I probably do have the time and effort to cast this for 2, and I don't need to use 4 mana in total, and then I have the mana left over to cast another spell, maybe like a mill spell, maybe a hold up a Drawn in the Lock after that. So that's the versatility. If you play a card like Dam, you need to think of it like a Damnation Wrath of God, but with upside. So you only are bringing this in against those matchups where you want a board wipe, and then you start to realize, oh wait, this is actually just better than Wrath of God. Yeah, and especially in Esper, you don't want black spells. Doesn't matter. You have Damnation in the Overload. What's going on, folks? It's simple, right? So pretty solid in that aspect. Not too bad. Let's move on from there. That's our board wipe in Esper. Into our final, really number 1 payoff spell. I'm talking about Prismatic Ending. Now, Prismatic Ending is really the Uro of Esper Mill, I should say. Now, it's not as powerful as Odor. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a broken magic card. I'm saying it's a powerful magic card. I'm saying that the reason you played Sultai Mill was strictly Uro. When we had Sultai Mill out there, Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath was probably, it was the most powerful card in Modern when Oko was banned. It was the most powerful card in Modern. And then alongside Sultai, you would play cards like Life Goes On. You'd play cards like Assassin's Trophy, Abrupt Decay, Weather the Storm, Veil of Summer, all these great payoffs. Prismatic Ending is Esper's Uro. Why do I say that? Well, if you think back to our Esper Mill list that we were showing earlier, this is essentially the Fatal Push replacement. You do not need Fatal Push. You can play it, but I don't think you need it. You just play a play set of this. Converge, exile target non-land permanent if its mana value, its CMC, for you boomers out there, is less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So, in layman terms, if you cast this for X equals 0 and just 1 white, it will be able to kill 1-drops. Not just 1-drop creatures though, 1-drop permanents. So check, it's able to kill Ragavan, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Ornithopters, but hey, it's also able to kill Sigarda's Aids, Utopia Sprawls. I'm even thinking about 1-drop artifacts. Yeah, Colossus Hammer. Good stuff, right? You start seeing that. And now look, check, it's being able to kill 2-drops, right? 2-drops are a little bit more difficult. Now you start seeing some downsides here. Obviously, it's sorcery speed and not instant. You're sacrificing the interaction aspect of it, but you are gaining a breadth of flexibility. So if you look into 2-drops, yeah, it kills Tarmogoyf, but it's going to cost you 2 colored mana, right? So you want, in Esper, you're going to be casting this for white and blue or white and black. Yes, it's able to kill Stoneforge Mystic, but hey, it's also able to kill stuff like Renin 6. Yeah, big stuff. Hey, heck, even sideboard Void Mirrors that might even come in against you. Do you have a Chalice of the Void on 1, your opponent? Well, cast this for 2 on the stack. Remember, this is always an interaction that people ask me about with Chalice of the Void, and it's very similar to Sunburst and Engineered Explosives when you're casting this against Thalia or whatever it is. Very similar interaction, I should say. So if a Chalice of the Void is on the battlefield on 1, if you cast Prismatic Ending for white and a blue, white and a black, it has 2 CMC on the stack. You are then able to kill this because it says equal to the number of, less than or equal to the number of colors spent to cast it. So you're then able to hit it there. And you don't have to worry about it. Don't cast it on 1 though. Remember that is going to hit the Chalice on 1. So even 3-drops are being able to be hit by this. You're thinking of Teferi Time Raveler as the kind of big 3-drop that you're really going to run up against commonly. And then finally, if you're able to do something spicy like play a Triome in the current deck list of Esper Mill that I have in the sideboard guides, you are then able to hit 4 CMC spells. So in Dotha Triome, that is white, black, green. If you have a battlefield that's giving you access to blue, white, black, and green, you're then able to use this spell to exile Jace Phantasms, Thought-Knot Seers, and other 4 CMC permanents, Karn the Great Creator, all of these spells that you traditionally had to quote-unquote race or just find a way around. Okay, you can do that, but you can also just kill it. Very, very, very versatile spell, and this is really the solo reason to play it. And if you're not really convinced yet, I highly encourage you to check out the 2 leagues that I've done before this video on my Twitch, playing Esper Mill, and the last gameplay video we put out about Esper. You're going to see the power of this strategy. A lot of the times, the reasons we're losing is because I'm fetching badly or we're getting unlucky. If I play those tight games, I'm getting the 4-1s and I'm getting the 3-2s. I've even gotten the 3-2s already. I'm saying if I play better, I'm getting the 4-1s. I might even get luck out and get the 5-0. But that's up to you to do. That's up for you to play better. So this is my general argument, card by card, for Esper. Where do I ultimately land on the Esper train? Let's back up here. From the top, what Esper provides you is a differing kind of variability in what you can answer. Dimir is very concentrated in what it wants to do. It realizes that it really can only interact with creatures on the board and hopes to interact on the stack with Drown in the Loch. Other than that, you're hoping to dodge. That's it. You're hoping to dodge and work around and really just rely on the sheer power of things like surgical extraction, the efficiency of something like fatal push, and the really turning factor of something like crypt incursion to get around some of your aggressive matchups. You come in out of the post board, you have stuff like echoing truth and really the necessary evil of something like engineered explosives to help you through. That's what Dimir can do. Got a very straightforward linear plan. But if you have a meta that's a lot more varied, you start looking at something like Esper Mill. Well, you have something like Prismatic Ending that can answer a lot of these threats. We have main board graveyard hate in something like Kaya's Guile. Let's say you're not even playing the Soul Guide Lanterns main board. You're playing the Surgical Extractions. Main board wipes in something like Kaya's Guile. Edict effects that get around Leyline of Sanctity. Life gain in the main board. So you're not playing Crypt Incursion right now in this list, but you can. And outside of the variability, you have all these amazing sideboard pieces like Path's Exile, Blossoming Calm. There's so many like targeted exile, black or red permanent type of spells. We even have Rest in Peace if the graveyard metas ever fully come back. That's a thing as well. Now, Rest in Peace can get a little bit awkward with Luros, but sometimes the graveyards are so volatile that you do need an answer like that. So that's what you're getting out of Esper. Targeted, shutout, removal cards that are very varied in what they can do. The thing you're losing is speed. Kaya's Guile is a 3 CMC card. Prismatic Ending is a sorcery. Blossoming Calm is a silver bullet. Path to Exile is a silver bullet. It gives them a land. But those matchups you need them in, it will shut that matchup out top to bottom. No questions asked. So let me know what you think about Esper Mill. Have I at least laid the groundwork for a basis for an argument for this? Have I convinced you into trying this? Again, look at the mana base. You don't need a March Flats for this. If you have 3 Flooded Strands, you have 4 Polluted Deltas, you can make this work. You're really just buying Hollowed Fountains. I hope y'all have a basic Plains and a basic Swamps and a couple Islands. You have the Aboros. Really what you're shelling out for is some of the sideboard pieces, Prismatic Ending, and Kaya's Guile. That's really what's going to get you into the Esper Mill sphere to make something like this work. And I highly recommend all of you try this out. I really need to get this video out to convince y'all, and I hope you enjoy it. As with that, we'll end off the video. Again, I've repeated this a bunch. Let me know what you think. What are some other cards that you're playing in your Esper Mill decks? And let me know in the comment section down below. I'm pretty sure everyone else would like to hear. We all need your spice. And with that, we'll end off the video. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. Remember that even the impossible is possible. And as we ponder that thought, I hope you'll join me next time as we take a glimpse into the unthinkable.